Yeah, it was mad actually because I was renting an apartment in the area, so literally 2 minutes away from where I end up buying the house, and I kind of fell in love with the area first of all because it was kind of right on the harbour inlet coming into Cork, beautiful scenery, like loads of activity on the water. Like where I was living was the apartment was literally on the water as well, and you see all these massive cargo ships going up and down, and people in speedboats and jet skis and all that kind of stuff. And it was it was lovely. It was a very active area from a scenery point of view, and so I kind of loved it. And then you know, funny enough, there was a house literally in the same area just down the road that was up for sale and it needed a bit of renovation. And I went down, I had a look at it, and I was going, oh, yeah, I think I could take on a fixer upper. But I never did anything about getting the mortgage. I don't know, I had it in my head. It was this awful process to kind of go through, and you have to sign a million forms and you're kind of reading all the dotted lines, and it was just a stressful process to go through. And the house I had initially went to go to see had then sold, and I was really angry at myself. I was really disappointed that I didn't, I suppose, in a way, kind of get stuck into the kind of the bits and pieces to figure it out. So then I went, right. I think that was my okay. That's enough. Enough is enough, Rob. Let's get stuck into it. So then I was thinking, well, what stopped me from going getting a mortgage and all the banks? And I went all the forms you have to write. I said, look, I went to a broker instead. Then, right. And it was great because you just had to do the forms once and the broker did all the rest of the work for you, which was great, right? And then she went off and found the best deal for me. And so then I got pre-approval then on the mortgage, and I got the phone call, and literally that evening I went on to Daft and I just typed in the area where I was living because I actually quite liked the area. And sure enough, there was another house after coming up for sale. I don't know how long it was on the market, but it was the first time I'd seen it on Daft, right? Which was only about a 5-minute drive further down the road from where I was living. I went, great. So down I went, and then you had to walk up these steps off the road and then kind of up onto the front door. And then I remember turning around and see, so the house is elevated, maybe about, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 feet above ground level. And just looking at the harbour, and I went, oh my God, this house is unbelievable, right? So then I kind of, you'd usually peering in the windows and trying to get an idea and trying to read rooms and what kind of condition they're in. And so then I rang the auctioneer the following day. We organised a viewing, and I remember walking in the front door the first time. And you get this vibe, like you get this vibe of oh, great positive energy from it. And I got that vibe instantly from the house. So walked in, and I remember thinking to myself, whatever you do, don't act too keen here, and I'll kind of keep nice and calm. The auctioneer will be telling you've got 20 buyers are interested, and the price is going to go up and up and up. And I was trying to keep it, so I was doing that thing that we all do in garages, you're kicking the tire of a car and you're trying to pull it down and all that kind of stuff. So I was going around in the rooms, there's a bit of sagging going on here, and what's this area over here? And I was like, actually he was seeing right through me and laughing at me. But that weekend then he kind of gave me the keys I could have. So what do we all do? We bring down our dad. So I brought my dad down, and we had our own keys. We kind of walked around the house and with a fine tooth comb and everything, kind of just checking everything. And what actually put my mind at ease that it was, yes, there was a lot of work to be done in the house, but my dad being a builder or in the building trade all his life, he kind of put my mind at ease going, this is a product, he was saying, look, I've seen houses a lot worse. Like, yes, there's work to be done, but it's not as bad as you would think so, right? So he kind of put my mind at ease, and I put in an offer in the house. And at the time, they were looking for 275,000 for that was the asking price. I put in an offer for 230, and it was accepted. So I got it actually below the asking price, and I especially in this day and age, I was chuffed with that moment. And I think they realised themselves, the previous owners realised that a lot of work to happen in the house, and yeah, so I kind of did that piece then, and then of course with all old houses, there was a load of right away issues to sort out and legal jargon to sort out, and God, it was nearly, so I went sale agreed in April, and I didn't get the keys till the following September because of all the legal thing. And it was funny, my solicitor had to get onto the estate of the Viscount de Vesey estate, to sign off this kind of pathway that was used to be a shared entry point with the neighbours. But look, God sorted, and yeah, that's how the house kind of came about, I suppose, initially, Jonathan. Like, it was good.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And I think the way you describe that kind of instant positive energy, almost like your
Yeah,
gut feeling of just like,
yeah,
yeah,
the good
this
feeling.
feels
Yeah,
right. It's
yeah,
important. You're right. It's important to go with that when you
yeah.
know it's right. So that's fantastic to hear. That's a huge thing for people. And even, I
Mm,
mean, living in anybody going to buy any home, getting that feeling
yeah,
is so
yeah,
important. And
yeah.
it's really nice to look out
And what
for.
and what's actually mad too is like there was wallpaper falling off the walls, and there was clearly rotten going on the floorboards because you could bounce on the floorboards. But I saw past all of that. Like, I actually completely saw past it, and I could see a kitchen, or I could see myself sitting in the sitting room and relaxing, watching the TV. Like, and like it was mental. Like, it just, like, I'm a very visual guy. I like to kind of see my visuals, and like I tend to second guess myself a million times and end up going back with my gut feeling anyway. But but um but the fact I was able to visualize what it would look like give me more self confidence to go for it. Then,
Brilliant. And then in terms of acting on how you visualize that in your
yeah,
head, how did
yeah,
you go about then planning the changes? Whether it
yeah,
was structural work or superficial work. How did you go about planning those?
yeah. So, good question. When once I kind of, if you've seen the TV show The Great House Revival, uh, like, I initially went to a local building company, and they had an in-house architect, part of the in-house, right? And of course, like, I went with a brief that I was thinking, oh, here's the layout that I think I would do, and he said, look, do you mind if I go free reign here? And I said, absolutely. So then he comes back in with 3D models and images and model, and I kind of got caught up in a moment. I would, yes, let's just go for it, not knowing how we're going to figure it out. And then we got the price back, and it was way out of my budget. And that was the moment I decided, right, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and kind of get stuck into it. So then, as part of the TV show, when Hugh Wallace came out to the house for the first time, he kind of suggested a different layout. And what was mad was the layout that he suggested was actually the original layout that I went to the architect with, and initially anyway. So mentally, it wasn't a big adjustment for me. So I was able to kind of adjust, right? So one of the biggest structural pieces was to knock down a wall, say between an old dining room or sitting room and the kitchen. The back of the kitchen was very, very dark. It was like a basement room. It was because of some really high walls on the back, and so on. And I remember before before even the TV show was started recording, I had to take down the ceiling in say where the kitchen is now. Was lumps of it was missing. It was really sagging because of previous work that was done in that, and a previous builder had lifted up the floorboards on the floor above and just dumped all the rubble in there. So it was a huge amount of weight, and then there was dry rot on the kind of the wall plates and all that kind of stuff. So I had to take the ceiling down, and then I then took down the plaster on, say, the wall I was going to knock down, but on the, say, the kitchen side. And I remember sitting on the trolley, Jonathan, and there was a moment where I was able to kind of run my hand up to see, right, is this wall load bearing or not? And then as I was able to put up my hand and kind of rub along the top, I could feel the top of the brick, and I could feel the joist from the floor above. I said, it's not load bearing. And I remember I was wearing this double filter mask, and I screamed in the mask. I was so happy, like, because I was thinking, yes, I don't have to figure out like load bearing and getting engineers. I can just take the wall down and it'll be fine. And it was great, So it was a nice moment. I was delighted then. So then the next piece I did, and what I tend to do a lot was, because I do a lot of the kind of the work myself, I done little little test holes here and there just to see what I was dealing with. And so then I kind of took out a small bit of plaster, and then I could see that it was like there was single timber beams, and there was kind of square, that's so these natural squares put in, and there was bricks in between that, and we knew then that's how the wall was built. So, roll on the TV camera crew arriving down again, and then getting out the sledgehammer and just kind of knocking down the wall. And it was funny. I was actually reading Twitter that night, and people had put in, Rob with a sledgehammer is like this guy, and it was Thor landing down, and there was lightning going everywhere, and there was me slinging the sledgehammer at the thing, right? And yeah, but Joe, what? I'll never forget the moment when my back was constantly I was constantly kind of facing into the kitchen, And I remember kind of walking in and then turning around, and the flood of light that kind of hit me in the face was just spectacular. And I loved it. It was like the sweat was rolling off me. And it was definitely a major reward for all the hard work. And I knew I could do it, and so on. And then, the next big works then was to kind of dig up the floors. And to be honest, that was nearly soul destroying, because I mentioned earlier the house was kind of elevated. So we couldn't get a mini digger up to kind of drive in the front door and do the digging for me type thing on the floor, because my plan was to put in underfloor heating. While I was digging down there, I put in some radon stumps as well. Just, it was while you're down there, you might as well do it. And we had to go down, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 foot to allow for the insulation board. There's 150 mil insulation board, and put in the 804 stone to level it out, and we had the radon barrier down, which is a DPM, and for kind of up the wall for just in case it was rising damp and all that kind of stuff. And I had to then dig the floor up by hand. So I had 10 of these gator buckets, the buckets with the 2 handles, I had a pick and I had a shovel, and it took me 8 weeks to break up the entire floor on my own, break up the entire floor with the pick, shovel it into the buckets. Then I had a trek to kind of go out the front door, down some steps, down further steps, and then heave the rubble over a railing into a skip down on the road level. And in total, for just the floor alone, I filled like 4 14-yard skips.
Wow.
Of just the rubble from the floor, of soil and dirt and all that kind of stuff from the floor. And I never forget, one day there was a skipper, the guy in the truck arrived, and the truck was doing a wheelie in the middle of the road because he couldn't lift it, right? I was going, what am I gonna do? Like, and I broke up by hand and carried out by hand, like,
Wow,
and
that's impressive.
but what's funny now though is like when people come into the room now and they go, oh my God, that kitchen is gorgeous. Don't mind the kitchen. Let me talk about this floor. So that was kind of good. But what was great was like I worked when I was 18. Like, I'm 44 now. So when I was 18, I worked on a building site as a summer job with my dad. That was my only building experience. So thankfully I was able to have, and then we had lockdowns in the middle of all that. So it's not as if Dad could come up and down from Tipperary to kind of meet with me. So we used to have like a video call every night. He'd tell me what I had to do, what was the next things to do. And then he'd give me a list of chores, and I'd do all of those until they're done. I'd ring him again and we'd do it again, and I'd show him the thing and all that kind of stuff. And even though I suppose at the time when you're doing all of your own, you're probably questioning your own madness, but the sense of achievement afterwards, like the energy that you get from it, was unbelievable, and it would give you like such a sense of achievement and satisfaction to get on to the next job. And I always think back to to that scene from Castaway where Tom Hanks builds a fire on the beach for the first time, and he's there, he's like, the chest is out and he's banging his chest, like, oh, look what I created. So that was kind of my feeling every time I either knocked the wall down or cleared out the floor or whatever it was done. It always gave me a boost for the next piece, like.
Brilliant. That's a tale of almost true blood, sweat, and tears, just completely gone into it. So you clearly put a lot of, personal time, effort, contribution. That sounds so rewarding. So while obviously your own time is extremely important, like when it came to getting in, I suppose, the experts or other tradespeople, how did you kind of make those decisions, or what other tradespeople did you get involved at certain points?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like, I'm a big believer of researching the life out of everything, like, so I done a huge amount of research initially on what type of heating system I was going to put into the house. And I didn't want to pipe in gas. I didn't want to pipe in oil and have a tank and all that kind of stuff. And then I was also conscious of trying to be environmentally friendly as I possibly could. So I started looking into the kind of renewable energy type heating systems that you could do then. So then I ended up going with the air to water system. And then once I knew I was going with that, I was then able to do the research on companies out there and kind of going out and reaching out to them and having a chat with them. And I ended up going with Solar Energy Solutions. They're based in Templemore in County Tipperary, and Paul and his team were absolutely fantastic to deal with. So I was able to kind of, deal with them and kind of trying to plan as much ahead as I possibly could, because I knew that I had to have my floor level. I knew I had to have the 804 in the radon down, the what you call it, the insulation boards down, the sheet of plastic. Then he could come in and put on his map for underfloor heating and all that kind of stuff, and then we could pour the. So I knew then I had to have stages done. So I was trying to plan ahead, and I suppose in my day job, I do an element of project management on various bits and pieces. So I brought, I suppose, my strength in project management to it, and that allowed me to kind of manage things within an inch of its life, But then one thing I was super conscious of as well is the character of the house. And I didn't want to ruin the house in any way whatsoever. And I'm also conscious of the fact that, like, I don't live in a museum, but I want to try and be sympathetic to as many of the original features as I could do, right? So I was looking into windows, and like the front of my house had an architectural protection on the front of it. So in summer you can't do any changes to the front facet of the house, and I was never going to do that anyway, but it's protected. So then I was looking, right, so we need to renovate the windows somewhat way, right? And so I found, then it was a load of research, a ton of research to do, and kind of figure out what companies were out there and who can I meet. And I had a couple of folks up to the house, but I ended up going with a company based in Tralee called Sash Windows Renovation. And these two lads, there was a two-man company. They're two Polish lads, and they were unbelievable. Their craftsmanship was just spectacular. They come out like the original windows. They're 166 years of age, and they renovated the windows, and to pretty much 90% of the original window staying intact, and including the glass. The original glass is in the house still. So when you're looking out, you can see all these kind of waves of distortion or little bubbles on the glass, and it's just stunning, right? And so then you end up building up a really good relationship with a company like that, and then you discover that they also do doors. So I got to renovate all my internal doors. They renovated the front door. Like even small things like this, Jonathan, that we had before I put in the Crittle door. Actually, they done the Crittle door for me. So before we put in the Crittle door at the back entrance, there used to be an old door there, but I got them to renovate that door, and now we use that door as my plant room door from outside the house. So like there was no waste, and then trying to keep as much of the original as I possibly could, So that was kind of Sash Windows Renovation. They're brilliant to work with, right? And they're up and down to the house nearly 2 years, nearly a year and a half of hard graft and working hard and getting it sorted between all the windows and so on. And then there was other companies that got in, like I discovered with two beautiful original fireplaces on the ground floor, and I got in a fireplace restorers called Noble Fireplaces. They're based in Blarney here in Cork, and they come out and they were to kind of take the fireplace apart, and it turned out that the beautiful marble style fireplace was had cracks in it, but they give it back, and you'd actually struggle to find where the crack was, and then the fireplace in the sitting room was a slate stone, a Kilkenny stone is what it was, and he was able to tell me all of it. And he was able to, they found fossils and everything on the stone. It was mental when you hear it. It was lovely, stunning.
Yeah.
So got them out to do that, and then even from obviously got my electricians in then as well. So Ken O'Connell Electricians, he was based here in Cork, and he was phenomenal, and kind of again is doing the full rewire. The house is probably last wired in the early 50s, and so he done a full rewire of the house. Now, when I say full rewire of the house, there's other floors to be done yet, but he's done in such a stage that he's able to kind of come back in different stages. The plumbing was done by Foley's Plumbing, and then last but not least, kind of major kind of, I suppose, incompetence with the kind of character of the house, I got in Munster Coving. And the reason I got in Mike from Munster Coving, I got him in because I lost the original coving or cornice, I suppose, in the kind of the now kitchen area, because I had to take that ceiling down because of all the damage and so on. But before we got rid of the cornice, Mike came and he took a mold of the cornice, and it was amazing to see how he did it. So what he done was, he basically had a piece of card and he had a pencil, and he kind of traced the shape of the pencil along the card, right? So then he had a piece of card. He then cut that out, and then he transferred that to a piece of tin, had the tin on a bit of timber, and then he had his lats out, and then had all the kind of plaster on it, and then pulled this guy through, and that was how he made the exact replica.